Hey, and welcome to Founders365. We are on podcast number 4, day number 4 out of 365, technically 366 as it's a leap year, but we're all just going to forget about that after February anyway. Today we have the wonderful, amazing Lily Walford, who has gone from being an accountant to a leading behavioural profiling person in the industry, which is I'm really fascinated to hear this story about how that happened. So welcome to the show, Lily.
Thank you.
I'm really glad you're here. Let's just start off by figuring out what you're about, who you're about, what's going on in your world. And you started your business 18 months ago, so we can start talking about that journey as well.
Perfect. Yeah. So my business is called Love with Intelligence. We are a relationship and dating coaching company, which specializes in behavioral profiling. So behavioral profiling is something where you can literally profile someone within 6 minutes and understand that person, which is really important when you think about relationships and dating, because a lot of coaching companies will just focus on you and not the person that you're actually attracting in.
That's already hit the nail on the head. Right into the environment you're in. Language and behavioral profiling. I'm a lab practitioner myself. So when I first started discovering it and learning about it, and it's just amazing about how you can just I think what we're going to have to touch upon straight away is probably some myths around it as well, because you've got a lot of, there's myths around NLP. I'm an NLP trainer. You're an NLP master practitioner, I hear. So there's loads of negative myths, let's say, which I'm really interested in if you've come across these yet and how they perhaps affected your business.
Yeah, I think with things like NLP, it's so great for communication. It's also great for rapport building. So building that relationship up where you feel like you know someone, you can instantly click with that person, and also understand why you're not clicking with certain people. And that's what I find absolutely fascinating about it. I think there's probably a little bit around the influence side. Perhaps what sort of bad things have you heard so far? Is it the influence side or?
Yeah, so whenever I talk about NLP, straight away you get not straight away, and this is not with everyone, but often you get the whole, oh, you're gonna tell me what I need to do, or you're gonna make me do something. So like that really heavily influence side, which I love. For anyone listening, Lily just rolled her eyes, which I love, because but when we bring this into what you do, behavioral profiling, I think the word profiling in itself can often scare people. So how do you overcome this? How do you overcome the fact that actually what you're doing is going to help people, be better in relationships, find that better partner, the partner that suits them and feeds their energy in the right way?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because with relationships and dating, you often find that it takes like 3 months to really get to know someone. And, as soon as that relationship gets to the 3-month place, it's either like, it carries on to the future or it ends at that time. And it's because it takes us that long normally to actually understand someone, to get to know someone, to understand what drives them, to understand whether you can build a relationship with that person or not. But what would happen if you could do that within 6 minutes? So you're not only saving that 3-month period, but you're also saving the heartbreak and building your confidence back up, building yourself back up, which can often take another 3 months in itself to go and do that before you get brave enough to go back into the dating world again. So automatically within 6 minutes, we're saving you 6 months of time of dating the wrong person and building yourself up, the confidence and the self-esteem aspect too.
And
so what's what I love about it?
When people approach you, when people come and find you, what's normally going on in their world? Why would they have come and found you? What's happening?
I think one of the most common ones is that they are attracting people who are interested in a one-night fling or something that's not long-lasting, or someone who's quite manipulative, or what's the word? Yeah, or just a compulsive liar, basically.
Yeah.
Which no one wants to be in a relationship with,
Mm.
and it's not going to build something sustainable or long lasting. So they're often in this place where they're noticing that they're attracting all the wrong ones. They're going on lots of dates, but often with people that they can't see a future with.
And why do you think that is? Because obviously the dating game has changed a lot because of technology. You know, you've got Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all of them. I don't even know them. I'm not single, so
You're
I
doing
don't know.
well.
Yeah. You know, what's the effect this technology has happened? What effect has this technology had on dating? You know, from an outsider's point of view, I'm guessing it's sped it up, right? It's allowed the conversations to happen a lot quicker. What's the dangers of that? What's happening with this?
I think one of the biggest things I've noticed is that, number one, you've also got like this weird, I call it like the Just Eat app way of dating. You know, you can place your order and have something delivered to you within that evening if you wanted it. I think that's a big negative aspect of the way dating's gone. But I think one of the most profound ones is that people have literally forgotten how to connect. People have forgotten how to actually have a deep, meaningful conversation. People are afraid of vulnerability. I mean, you think about the amount of things that we hear now around mental health. And that used to be such a big taboo subject. It still is to a certain degree. But people are afraid to have that vulnerability and that connection in relationships. So
I think
yeah.
I mean, what I've seen in this resonates with me a lot, because when I, in terms of the business side of things, when I first started doing work with the founders and you know, focusing on those sort of people, one of the things that they wanted was actually bringing offline, you know, offline connectivity. Everything in the business world and you know, training and coaching, a lot of it is so pushed to be fully online, fully at that online aspect, that I personally think that a huge area of that human connection is being missed. You know, that looking in someone's eyes, seeing how their body language is, and doing all these things that we naturally do anyway. And this isn't any like NLP or secret hypnosis or anything like that. As human beings, we are naturally observant. We're naturally intrigued about how people are doing. So I think in the last, you know, what I've seen in the market is you know, from 2016 to 2018, there was so much pressure on having an online fully business, that it caused, you know, talking about mental health, it caused a lot of stigma in mental health. I've said it on one of the previous episodes, that whole hustle mentality, you know, 24/7, you gotta work.
Yeah,
it's going to have an effect. And it's really interesting to hear that actually in the dating aspect as well, you know, obviously we're going to have these same sort of behavior patterns crop up, which is so key, because obviously you see it in your work that we always have crossovers in life. You know, I'm sure people come to you and they go, oh, I really want to find a decent man or a decent woman. And then where do you start with these people? What's your first port of call?
Well, it's always actually understanding where they are at the moment. And that's just so important. You can't do like a one size fits all. You actually need to understand that person, but also it's giving people to, you know, the space to understand where they are at the moment and what do they actually want for the future. What are they working towards? Or you often find that with relationships and dating, where people are actually attracting the wrong ones, they are often either blocking themselves in some sort of way to stop being heartbroken again. So you can even find that they will go off with like a best friend or a friend of theirs that they've kind of friend zoned for a while, or you know, or they're going on dates with people that they know that they're not attracted to or they're not actually keen on, because they think that's a safe way of dating. Or you have people that are completely shying away from it completely. Some people,
it's really interesting. But one of the from speaking to you now, I'm so intrigued about how you went from an accountant to, you know, diving into people's love and the way they think and all that kind of stuff. How did that process happen? I know you've got a little bit of a story with it as well, so I'm really intrigued to hear this.
Yeah. Oh gosh, when
Where
where
do you
do I
start?
begin? So yeah, absolutely loved accounting. Was an accountant for a fair few years, and I had a massive change within my life. So I had a relationship breakdown. I had to move cities, move house, move jobs. And, I was moving away from a life that I absolutely loved. I had a beautiful 4-bedroom detached house. I had 2 brand new Mercedes on the drive. And all of a sudden,
You had
it's
the
like,
dream.
yeah. And I thought, oh gosh. And, I thought I had the best relationship ever. And it just went within one weekend. So I knew, okay, if I was leaving that life that I really loved, then I know I have to make something better. So through that, I ended up finding NLP, went through the NLP journey, hypnosis, and realized that there were so many great qualities there that, led me to realize that, oh my gosh, people are just struggling with communicating and actually connecting. And I noticed some toxic patterns within past relationships. And I thought, right, okay, how can I use this now for people to actually improve their relationships and their dating life? Previous to that relationship, I also went through an abusive relationship where I was stalked for 5 years. So I really didn't want to go through any of those scary patterns again. And, setting up my business in another year down the line, I've met Chase Hughes, who's a world leading behavioural profiler, and realized, oh my gosh, there is so much here that people actually do need in terms of knowing how to find and attract a safe, loving partner. And safe being like the huge word there.
Get the key word.
Yeah. Like I said to you before, I think it's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men go through a physically abusive relationship.
Those stats are crazy.
Is madness.
Yeah.
Especially when you think that, you hear people mention it. There's no mention in the media. There's nothing. Even it's there's a scary stat around 2 women in the UK every week are killed by their partners or ex-partners.
Wow. And that's just of what we know, right? I'm sure there must be so many cases and relationships out there that are going under the radar, that are not contributing to these stats. But those are, when you told me those stats, I was shocked, and I couldn't believe it. How did you make the transition? How did you make the transition from, safe job, the house, the cars, the white picket fence life, as we might say, to your own business, building this business up? You're 18 months in, 2-year anniversary in April.
Yeah.
How did you make that transition happen?
So, like I said, found NLP, found hypnotherapy, and, I originally went into it for me.
Yeah.
I've realized, oh my gosh, I've got all these toxic patterns. I've got these things to deal with. You almost, you go into it thinking you're okay, and then realize, oh, I'm actually quite broken at this point, and I need all these bits and pieces to build myself back up.
Yeah, been there.
Oh yeah, it was really, really fascinating to see how much NLP and hypnotherapy can support and help your mentality and build you up. And I just suddenly realized that this is just something that people really needed. So to start off with, I also did like a little bit of one-to-one, face-to-face coaching, and really, really enjoyed that. But I met this woman who had, and bless her, she had gone through like a horrendous time. She'd been with her husband for like 16 years and found out that he'd gone off and left her for someone else. And she had her 2 boys, and she had to build life back. And I started working with her. And from there, and seeing the transition she made within 4 weeks, within 4 weeks, her confidence was back. She had suddenly realized that she could actually have the life she wanted. She started to go into a new line of work, and so much changed in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And that led me to go, right, okay, I'm going to specialize in this because I love it. I love seeing her transition. And it led me to work with so many different people around the world, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the US. And yeah, it just all rolled from there. Started to build the business online, got on Facebook, and yeah.
I think one of the key things you just said there is that you love it, right? It's
Yes.
there's so many. I think, what is the power behind that feeling of actually loving what you do? Harnessing, because I'm sure you enjoyed the accountancy world, but now you love what you do. So why is that so important?
I think for me personally, it's from knowing where I started. So when I lost everything and I had to rebuild my life again, it made me realize how important it was to have the right tools in place to build the life that you actually want, to actually have the relationship that you really want, to be able to feel confident within yourself, to be able to have the right boundaries so you're not walked over or those things. And it made me realize what a huge difference it made in my personality, in my life, and to see it actually have the same effect with my clients I work with. It's just so rewarding. So rewarding. I mean, plus I also get a few wedding invitations as well, so that's quite nice.
How many weddings have you had? How many out of the work you've done? How many people have been married?
Well, I've got one to go to this year. Amazing. And I had one last year as well. So yeah. So that's always a good bonus.
Soon you'll actually be marrying people and doing the whole service. On that topic of relationships and finding that person, you've obviously seen from your own experience, but also from clients' experience in terms of, red flags. What are some of the red flags that people can look out for when they're maybe not even, obviously for a relationship in terms of a partner, but also just friendship and the people around them, because it's all the same sort of energy. I speak to a lot of people, and the environment they're in is so dangerous, and I'll use the strong word dangerous, to like their own success, whether that's business, life, love, whatever that is. It's that environment and those energy around them, it is so vital to be in the right wavelength. So what are some of the red flags that people can look out for maybe?
Okay, I think one of the biggest ones is if you actually say no to something. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it means going out for a meal one night or whether it means doing something in business. If someone can't respect your answer and take that as the final answer, then that is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
There's a difference between having curiosity around your answer, and there's a difference between being manipulated or influenced in changing that answer. So that's a huge one to look out for, especially in relationships and business.
Yeah. And how would people know the difference? How would people feel or experience that difference and know when to say no?
Yeah, I think in terms of if someone's curious, they'll actually ask you questions around it. Like, okay, so what made you come up with that answer? Why is that important to you? What's made you decide this? Rather than, well, I think that's stupid. People sort of do the shaming, the guilt tripping, the emotional manipulation of it. So if there's like an emotional manipulation there, going, well, I think you're stupid for doing that, or why are you so small-minded? Or something like that, that's where it's more manipulative or a bit more darker than, actually having your interests at heart. Someone who's generally curious and who wants to know that they've got your best interests at heart will actually ask you questions around it. So what makes you think that? What makes you decide this? Okay, what can we do to improve that for you right now if we were to do this? So you can see their intentions are completely different.
Yeah. And what about when, that person doesn't have that internal confidence within themselves to say no. In business, in life, in relationships, great book, Power of No, but just in general, the power of no has such a meaningful thing, because it gives you the authority, it gives you self-respect in a lot of ways, when you know when to say no in relationships, when you need to say no in a business decision. I've said no in a lot of business decisions, and at the time I've thought, is that the right decision? But it's still my decision. But how do people that perhaps don't have that internal confidence, how do they get to that state? How do they get to that stage of being able to say no?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with saying it's self-respect. One thing I say about relationships is that you're a mirror. You're a mirror to the people you attract. And a lot of people who have insecurities will play them out very differently. So you can either be someone who will be very inward, who won't say much, or someone who will try and to control the situation to feel safe, to stop those insecurities coming out. So I would first say, treat yourself the way you'd want others to treat you. And I think that's a huge one, because people basically treat people very differently depending on their confidence levels.
Yeah.
And just their respect levels. So build your confidence up, understand who you are as a person, understand who, what you want to stand for, understand what drives you. And I think that's a big thing as well, understanding yourself and trusting yourself. I mean, there's a great book by Brené Brown, and I always go back to it a lot with a lot of my clients. I think one of her ones that I really love is called Braving the Wilderness. And she's got a great trust analogy in there, which helps people to develop boundaries, develop confidence. So if you're struggling to say no, I'd say definitely that's the place to start. Go and read that book, Braving the Wilderness.
Boundaries is such a good word.
Yes.
Knowing your boundaries, knowing other people's boundaries as well. And in life, business, love, if you don't know your own boundaries, that's when realistically people start taking things too far, or taking situations out of hand, because you don't know whenever I think of boundaries, for some reason I'm always thinking of just like a field with a fence, right? Know how big the field is, what's in the field, maybe there's some sheep, some cows, or whatever, but what's going on in that field. And when we speak about boundaries in business and in personal life, it's got to change as well, because people have different boundaries in different situations. Like you just said, people have different confidence with other people in different situations. Someone can be super confident at home, but put them in a networking event with 300 people and they're just like in the corner, not talking to anyone. So how did you start setting your own boundaries when you started this business? 18 months ago, you had that thought, you made that decision, you went, right, I'm doing it, I'm starting my own business. How did you figure out what your boundaries were, and how did you set them?
Yeah, okay. I think to start off with it's having that clear goal, and knowing that every decision you make is knowing if that is going to take you a step closer to your goal, or is that going to take you a step away from your goal. And I think basing any answers, to any questions on that is so, so important within your life. They're your boundaries. Is it taking you away, or is it taking you to? I think that's a great one to stick to begin with.
Yeah, that's spot on. And how did you overcome some hurdles? So, perhaps when things were not feeling in your comfort zone, or when, as every business owner and every relationship has, you go through these difficulties. But how did you overcome these hurdles in your story in the last 18 months?
Yeah, I think one of the major ones for me to begin with was the imposter syndrome. Thinking, who am I to say this and say that? I think when I started my business off, I was single, and it made me feel like, who am I to give single women advice on getting into a relationship when I'm not in a relationship myself? And that used to play on me so much. But I think one of the biggest things that you can do I think it was a YouTube video that I'd watched, and it was basically saying change your story.
Yeah, that's Brett Bennett
And
Brown
yeah,
as well.
yeah, it's like change your story. So it's actually understanding who, your journey, what have you done so far? Look at all your achievements, look at what you've done, and actually have a look at where you want to go.
Yeah.
And just then have a look at you almost like in a third person. Okay, what type of person does that? And you can start appreciating you from that viewpoint, basically, to build yourself back up, to know that that's who you are, that's the journey you're on, and that's how you're going to move forward.
Yeah, that's couldn't have said it better myself. So what's coming up for you this year? What's coming up with Lily in 2020? What's happening? What are you going to do? What am I going to be able to see? What adventures have you got in store?
Loads. So to start off with, we've just recently launched a narcissist program. So how to identify and disarm a narcissist. It's actually been recently...
That is a strong title. That is a scary strong title.
Oh gosh, it's so good. I mean, we've actually co-developed that with Chase Hughes, the world leading behavioural profiler. It's been mentioned as well in the Entrepreneur magazine.
Amazing.
So we've had so many people already reach out and join. So yeah, that's on our website. We've also got a behavioural profiling course that people can start in February. So that's learning how to profile someone within 6 minutes, also be better than a human lie detector. So learning how to spot the signs if someone's lying, because like a lot of the time in relationships, people will overanalyze situations.
So many
like,
problems.
oh, they don't really mean that, and all these different things. So to be able to actually, read the situation properly, so you don't have the overanalyzing and the things that are stopping you from being present in that relationship going on.
Yeah.
So it's so good. And also understanding the person that you're attracting as well. So that's really, really important, like the safety first. Yeah. And then we've got a few retreats and stuff coming up and later on in the year as well. So
what made you do that? Because I know a lot of coaches, and obviously I'm a coach myself, but what made you go down the having the retreats? Because retreats are super popular at the moment. Very, very beneficial. I love a retreat. That's the best way I learn personally. But what made you as a business decision go, okay, yeah, we're going to offer this. We're going to allow people to come on our retreats?
Yeah, I think with this stuff, it's so important to have the space to do it. Because often if you're just doing the course sometimes, or you're reading a book or whatever you might be doing, life can get in the way. And I think being able to have that space away from everything, to be supported, to have that time to really integrate what you're learning in a safe space, I think it's just so beneficial. I think that's for me, that would be the way that I'd love to learn this stuff. So that's the way I'd love to be able to offer my clients in future to learn.
And it comes back to the environment, doesn't it? It comes back to when I always used to give the analogy that, because I did all my training in a very intensive manner, flew to Spain for 12 weeks, that sort of thing. And I always gave the analogy that when you get home and you put your key in the door and you open that door, it's going to be so different from when you left. And taking people out of their environment and surrounding themselves with people that are different things but are on a very similar journey. And I think this is why I started the whole Founders Network and this podcast, because every founder I speak to has a completely different story, right? A completely different background, a completely different business, but we're all on very similar paths of growth and discovery, and figuring out what you want as your success. And I think when you have retreats in this manner and have those change your environment, whether it's online, in person, whatever that situation is, it really helps that person grow in a different manner. And you mentioned imposter syndrome. What better way to help imposter syndrome if you surround yourself with very like-minded and similar people?
Yeah, Exactly. I think it's having that sense of community and knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because I think often in life, because, we often surround ourselves with, family members, friends, and they're not on the same journey as you. They might not be learning the same things as you. They might not be, have the same viewpoints or have the same childhood or whatever. And, we can often feel that we're alone in certain situations. But being in places where we're learning similar things or on very similar journeys or have very similar mindsets, it stops you from feeling alone. And it also helps you to develop your mindset too by talking to these people. They might have had, other learnings that you might need, or you might have other learnings that you can pass on to them. And I think, having those dynamics there as well, it's, you often make friends for life on those sort of courses and in those sort of environments too.
Completely.
Which really adds to that experience.
When I first started on my journey, in terms of the coaching world, I went to a 2-day welcome thing, and I was sat next to this lady and we got chatting, and we didn't end up training with this company, but actually we ended up doing all our training together. We still talk now. She lives like an hour away from me. But that just shows you that the moment you put yourself in that right environment, like I said, I've said it a few times, but in business and life and in relationships, everything changes. And what's interesting for me is I didn't know I wasn't in a right environment until I was in the right environment. So
yeah.
How do people do that? I know how I did it, but how do people get to that stage of discovery, in that sense of, oh, actually, maybe this isn't right for me and I should allow myself to be curious and discover what is right for me?
Yeah, I think there's a great analogy that my other half always says. And it's like, it's the difference between feeling that you're traveling upstream or going with the current.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling that you're almost going against yourself and going against life, or life is feeling really hard, then it just shows that something needs to change. Something needs to change in order for you to feel normal and for life to just flow for you.
Yeah.
So I think if you're feeling that, then start, it just shows that you need to start exploring things, to show that you're not actually in the life that you currently, you're not enjoying it, or you're not enjoying the company that you're in, or there's almost like a feeling that that there's something more, but you don't know how to quite get it. It's that turning point, isn't it? That that it's time to do a bit of discovery.
And then it's just taking that first step, isn't it? It's that first step, whether that's a call with someone, you go to an event, or you say yes to going out for dinner with your friends when you normally say no. It's just everything starts with a first step, right?
Oh yes.
Especially when we're talking about that rediscovering of environments and that rediscovering of who are you, because we as people, as you know, we change, our values change, our beliefs change. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago. You're not even the same person you were probably a year ago or 6 months ago, right?
Exactly.
But we need to be giving ourselves that space to rediscover who we are, to keep that environment as aligned to us as possible. In relationships, for example, when you see that, do you ever come across relationships that are actually great? They're really good relationships, but they just need that little bit of tweaking or that little bit of tinkering from your wizardry to help them along.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting you said about the discovery side of things, because at the end of the day, you can only connect to someone as deeply as you are connected to yourself.
Love that. Yeah.
So I think having that first step to really understand and discover yourself and what you need and what you want out of life is the perfect first step. And then discovering that in a partner as well. And seeing what you do have aligned and what you do have separate. Because I think the thing with a relationship, it's basically understanding that both of you have each other's best interests at heart. And I think if you have that as a foundation, and also the understanding that you're two separate people, you know, you're going to have your joint goals and you're also going to have your separate goals. But it's about knowing that you can evolve together on that journey and enjoy that journey together.
Yeah, that is
So
spot on.
So I think that's something that's really important in a relationship. I think the biggest common issue within relationships, if there's an issue, is communication.
Mm.
And I think what a lot of people do, out of fear or out of shame or out of guilt, or almost like the feeling of, oh, I'll just keep the peace, they hold things back.
Yeah.
Or they do the opposite and have the explosiveness. And it's like, well, neither of those are really going to be able to
find
get
the middle ground. You find that middle.
Yeah. So it's basically, I think for people, it's, you know, in relationships, it's being able to communicate from a place where you already know what outcome you both need.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, knowing that you can discover that together in order to move forward, because often you almost have two people who are battling out the egos, who's going to win the argument, rather than actually what's the solution that you're both going to feel happy with.
Solution orientated results.
Definitely. And you think about, you know, in terms of business mindset as well, you need to be solution focused. It's the same with the relationship.
Yeah, and especially,
you need to be solution focused.
If you you know, there's a lot of people out there that listen to this, and in my Facebook group and stuff, that are co-founders, and it's the same sort of dynamic. It's the same conversation. It's that you've got to be open, you've got to have that communication. If you want your business to thrive, just like any relationship, you have to have that core understanding of communication, coupled with what you said earlier, in the sense of, you know, you've got your goals, I've got my goals, together we've got some goals together, and we're moving forward, we're transitioning through life together, or life and business together, and that's what's key, and that's such a great valued bomb that you've dropped today, which is fantastic. But one last question. This is such a stereotypical question, but what are the 3 takeaways that people can take away from this chat with you today?
Yeah. I think
that's a stereotypical question.
In terms of business, I'd say, in terms of business, I'd say just being able to understand yourself and understand your goals and what you want to achieve. I think number 2, you know, stick to your boundaries. No is no. Understand whether it's taking you towards your goal or taking you away from your goal. And I think, you know, in terms of relationships, you know, ensure that you're with someone who has your best interests at heart and you have their best interests at heart too. So I think that's the main ones for me.
Fantastic. Lily, thank you so much for being our 4th guest on Founders365. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I very much enjoyed it. And if anyone wants to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, either via my Facebook page. So that's Love with Intelligence. I've also got a group, and I've also got a website, lovewithintelligence.com. We've got a narcissist test on there. So if you think you've been a target of a narcissist, you can go and take that test if you want to. And yeah, I think everything's on there.
Fantastic. Lily, thank you once again. Thank you everyone for listening, for watching live or on the replay. This has been Founders365. Day number 4.
Thank you.